don't have closing figures for the NSE 20. What were those figures and what moved the markets in either direction?
Well, I must say at the time of going to press, the figures had not been released. Maybe it's something to do with the football bug that has beat the whole world. But as we were speaking about it, you look at from yesterday's 4,327, give or take, we're looking at maybe plus 25 basis points or thereabouts. Yeah, so not much of a significant change, but still also not much of a loss on the other hand. But going forward, maybe we would look at 2 or so counters with regards to certain activities that have happened. You've just seen an article about the lowering of interconnectivity charges. Right. Then there was also something else about the 3G license, upfront license fee being reduced from 25 million US dollars to 10 million US dollars.
All right, we seem to be having a bit of a problem there, Waiyaki. Let's just talk about those issues that you're raising, because they've been quite topical this week. The reduction of the 3G license fee, but also the regulator saying for an upgrade to 4G, there'll be no cost. And the thinking behind these moves by the regulator is effectively to give the smaller telecoms operators a leg up in the market, because there've been a lot of complaints about the dominant position of Safaricom.
Well, given as it is, because there were some new rules that were brought into place in terms of market domination. But I'd have to look at it also in terms of revenue streams, because if you look at Safaricom's books in terms of their data has been one of the key areas that has increased their revenue streams. And by slashing the 3G license fees, it means the competitors such as Zain may now be able to venture much more aggressively into the market, thereby more or less reducing the dominance of Safaricom, which in the long run, if you're to look at it, Safaricom is a listed company, Zain is not at the moment. So you look at it from a point of view, will that affect the bottom line? Then going forward, also the interconnectivity charges, you find that Safaricom still has the largest subscriber base. So it means most of the other smaller telecoms actually pay up. Safaricom ends up having the lion's share in terms of interconnectivity fees. And if that is lowered again, you look at also, that's another key area in terms of their revenue streams that will be affected in the medium to long term. But graduating to 4G without any license fees may mean that out of the telecommunications companies we have in the market, the one that is most suitable right now to actually move to a platform of 4G is Safaricom. So I'd look at it from a point of view, which is the balancing effect. Right. Graduating to 4G, still increase your data revenues, or Zain coming on board and the other mini telecommunications on a 3G platform and it taking much more of the data market.
All right, let's talk about a little bit about data services, because what we do know is that mobile phone penetration in Kenya is 50% and moving upwards, whereas internet penetration is still below 10%. So there is a strong case to argue for the operators to start improving on their data service provision on handsets, because that's probably the way to circumvent the access to the digital gap in terms of internet provision and computers and the like. But in terms of innovation, we've seen a lot of innovation through money transfer services from both Zain and also from Safaricom, but the smaller players not making significant ground. Will this review of 3G licenses help in any way?
Well, I tend to agree with you from that point of view, whereby the regulator has actually looked at the consumer. They want to make as many people as possible to get onto the data platform, to be able to access. You can do banking, you can be able to pay your bills on by using the same handset, and that means that the penetration will be increased. Maybe by the fact that lowering that entrance fee would mean, yes, like you mentioned earlier, the mini players will be able now to actually be able to compete slightly effectively with the dominant player in the market, which is Safaricom for that matter.
All right, let's talk about other news. East African Breweries Limited affected by sin taxes introduced in the budget of Uhuru Kenyatta, and that's going to see beer prices increase.
Yeah, that's actually what I was looking at. It's also a very interesting concept, because East African Breweries, as much as its flagship is in the beer, it is in the beer manufacturing and beer distribution, you find that they also have, after purchase UDV, they have the wines and spirits section, which is actually whereby where beer prices have increased, the wines and spirits have actually been reduced. So if you are to look at it in terms of revenue, at one end, will there be less people consuming beer and more moving towards the wines and spirits? What will be the bottom line? Would it mean that, for instance, they'd start slowing down the production capacity of beer and focus more on the wines and spirits? Mm-hmm. That is one of the things that I want to put across and try to think about it, like, looking at EABL going forward, what will be their strategy? Will their strategy change mid-level to focus more on marketing the wines and spirits division at the expense of the beer? Or will the consumers vote with their feet and move from beer more to the wines and spirits? So that's something that would look at, and the general outlook, would that affect their share price at the market? Would there be a different management structure in terms of marketing or in terms of how best to proceed with their business?